And welcome, Mindsetters, to this session of Exam School. I hope you guys are ready. You've got your pens, pads out, and you're going to make some notes. Because, yes, Mindsetters, we're trying to help you guys out. And I'm Ty, and I'm here with Haley, who's going to be taking us to today's session. Haley, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Ty?
Good. What are we doing today?
Grade 12s. We're going to be doing some revision. We're going to be doing some paper 2 questions, paper 1 questions from February this year, from the supplementary exam. So,
okay, all right.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so while you make your way across the board, Mindsetters, I'm here to tell you, you know what to do. You need to get on the page, www.facebook.com/learnextra. Chat to us. Let us know what you guys are thinking. If you're lost any, if you need help, post on the page. We cannot stress this enough. We're trying to help you guys out, and we can't read your minds through the screen, so you have to talk to us on the page. So chat to us. And I'm sure you've seen the next level promotion, so make sure you share responsibly. Don't just go sharing, otherwise you end up closing our page. Make sure you share smart. Tell someone who you really think would benefit from this, and let them know that, hey, Mindset helped us, so let it help you. But on that note, Mindsetters, don't forget to join Curio. Yes, Curio, get on that, help yourselves out. But for now, we've got a session to do. So, Haley, take it away.
Thanks, Ty. Grade 12. Okay, so I'm going to start. I believe that there's 2 major sections that we've had people telling us over Facebook and all the other networking sites that they're having problems with. The first is your area volume kind of questions. I'm going to start with that. And the second one is finance. So I'm going to get to finance later. So let's start off with the area volume question. So like I said to you earlier, this is adapted from the February-March 2012 paper 1, and we're going to be dealing with question 5. Now, I know that a lot of you struggle with this question. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a deep breath when you get into the exam and think you can do it. They give you formula. They give you everything that you need. So if you just go step by step, break it down, you actually, before you know it, have answered the question and you've done all right. So let's go through that like that. So we're starting off with a question. We've got Jabo. I don't know how to pronounce that. Ndao requires a cylindrical water tank to collect rainwater from his roof. The water will be used for irrigating his garden. And then they give us a diagram, a picture of what his house looks like. And there's your tank that we've got. And they give us the cylindrical tank again. So we've got our outer height they've given us. And this is the cylindrical water tank. Jabo wants to know how much rainwater the tank can hold. The inner radius of the tank is 0,998 meters. And the inner height of the tank is 2,498. Now, my question to you is, why are we looking at the inner radius and the inner height? Because basically what we want to do is we do not want to count the actual tank. So we're only going to look at the inner radius. So if I look at a circle, let's do it here. I've got, that is my actual tank. And if I had to do that, let's try that. Try to draw a better circle than that. I'm sure I can do a better circle. Let's try that again. So I've got my circle of my tank. And in actual fact, if I draw another color, you will see that it is actually, and that's the thickness of the tank. So I only want the radius of the inside of the tank. And that's what they've given me. I want that radius. And I want the height, excluding the actual tank. So, and that's also why these numbers are quite strange. Usually we would expect 1 as your meter, or 2.5, but we're getting these strange numbers. But the question says, calculate the total volume, rounded off to 3 decimal places. So always highlight that. And when we go back, we will check that we've done that, of the water tank. And they've given you the formula. So what do? We go to a piece of paper and we actually start by writing out the formula. So the volume of the cylinder is equal to pi, and they tell us to use pi equals 3,14. So I'm going to substitute straight into here, 3,14 times my radius squared. Now, where was my radius? In my question, I read my radius. It was 0,998 meters. So times by 0,998 meters, and that's squared, times the height, and my height of the tank was 2,498. So all I have to do is substitute in the values, and they've given me the values. So it's actually quite an easy sum. And let's get our calculator out to do this. So we've got 3,14 times by my radius, 0,998 squared, times by my height, which was 2,498. 498. Just want to double check that that was 498. 498. So check as you go along. Check your calculator. Is it exactly what you have in your book? And we press our equals, get an answer at 7,182. Remember they said 3 decimal places. So 7,812. And what are we dealing with? We're dealing with volume, which means that it is meters cubed. Don't forget your units. Really, really important that you put your units in your answer. Have I answered the question? They wanted 3 decimal places. I've calculated the volumes. I've got it. Perfect. We can move on to the next question. Right. Now let's see what else he wants. He wants to know how much rainwater the tank can hold. And we've got that, right? Determine the height. Round it off to again 3 decimal places of the water in the tank when it's 80% full. And this is 2 marks. So it is also a good idea to actually look at the mark allocation because it'll give you an indication of how much detail you need to go into for your question. Because what we could actually do is we could work out the volume that we had worked out in the first part of the question, work out 80% of that, work backwards, we've got the radius, work out the height. But that seems like a lot of work to do for 2 marks. So in actual fact, if I think about it like this, if I've got my tank, let's draw a cylinder, and let's draw another cylinder. Right. If I've got this full to the top, then my height is the total height. But if I've got it 80% full, then my height will be 80% of my height. Because everything else stays exactly the same. I've got the same radius, my power doesn't change. So all I really need to work out is what is 80% of my height. So let's get a different color so we can see what we're doing. Right, so my height was 2,498 meters. And I want to know what 80% of that is. And again, I need to round to 3 decimal places. And the question was just calculate the height. So it was 2,498 times by 80%. Don't forget to use your percentage button. And my answer is 1,998. Rounding off to 3 decimal places, so we can ignore the 4. 1,998. And our units, in this case, we're dealing with meters. So far, not too bad as far as questions go. The outside wall and roof of the rainwater tank need to be painted. So this now we're dealing with the outside wall. The outer radius of the tank is 1 meter, and the outer height of the tank is 2.5 meters. Calculate the surface area of the tank that will be painted using the following formula. And again, they give you the formula, they give you the values. So possibly the hardest thing about working this out sometimes is if they give you the diameter and you need to work out the radius. And just remember that your radius is half the diameter. But in this case, they've given us the radius. So my formula, again, I'm just going to substitute in values. So my surface area is equal to pi, and again I'm using 3,14, times by the radius, which in this case was 1 meter, and times by, times the radius, times by, and they've got an open bracket, 2 times the height, which was 2,5 meters, times the radius. Now, I think that they've made a mistake. 2 times, 2 times pi. We've left out a formula. Okay, let's go back to this formula. I'm going to rewrite the formula before I do the substitution. Let's erase this, because this bracket looked like it was in the wrong place. And I think the problem is that our surface area is actually 2 times pi times the radius, and then open the bracket, radius plus height. Okay, so we've got this 2 times. It's been written in a little bit incorrectly. But okay, remember that we have retranscribed these, and I know that it was correct in the actual exam. So let's now substitute in this. Okay, so we have 2 times the pi, 3,14, times my radius, which is 1. and then open my brackets, 1 plus my height, which is 2,5. The formula that you guys probably use in class, I just want to go through that for a second, is probably the surface area is 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. That's probably the formula that you used to. So all we've done in this case, we've actually taken out a 2 pi radius. Okay, not important how we got there, important that you're able to use the formula they give you. So let's do that on our calculator. So on our calculator, we've got 2 times by pi, which is 3,14. We are opening that bracket. We've got a radius, times 1. Then we are opening the bracket. We are saying 1 plus 2.5, closing the bracket, and we get an answer of 21,98. So that's 21,98. And now we're doing a surface area. Area is always a squared value, and it was in meters, so that's meters squared. Okay, let's move on to the next part of the question. Suppose the tank filled up at an average rate of 5 millimeters per minute. Calculate how long it took in hours for the water in the tank to reach a height of 1,200 millimeters if the tank was initially empty. And now they actually give you the formula again. So we take our height in millimeters, and that's the height of the tank's going to be. So our height in millimeter is 1,200 millimeters, divided by the average rate per millimeter per hour. Now we've got 5 millimeters per minute. So we can calculate it per minute and then convert it. Or we can change our 5 millimeters per minute and work out how much that is of an hour. So let's divide by 5 and let's see what we get. So in this case, we're going to take our 1,200 divided by 5. And we're going to get 2,400. But remember, that was minutes. So we've got 2,400. That is minutes. So it's probably easier for me at this stage to convert it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it by 60. So on my calculator, I can do that. Divide by 60. And we get an answer of 4 hours. So it'll take 4 hours to fill up the tank. Now, does that make sense? I always like to say, well, can we make sense of this question? Now, we were filling up 5 millimeters per minute. So if you think about it, how many millimeters can I fill up? I've got 5 per minute. So if I times by 60, I see that I can fill up like 300 millimeters in an hour. Now I need 1,200 millimeters. So it does make sense because I'm filling it up at a very, very slow rate. And it's probably because my radius is so big. Have we got time to carry on? I don't know what the time's going on today. So we'll carry on.
I think we can squeeze. We should actually just jump to a break.
Well, maybe we should squeeze. Let's see. Maybe we should jump to a break.
Because you actually checked out the next question. You're like,
yeah, maybe we should.
Yes. So mindsetters, make sure you do not forget. Get onto Curio. Help yourselves out. And again, make sure you share smart. You know about the campaign. Unlock the next level. So mindsetters, make sure you share with someone you know will benefit from this, and you think it'll just help them out. But for now, we'll see you after this break. And welcome back, mindsetters. Yes, you better be back with your pens, pads, and ready to make notes with your phone right next to you so you can make sure you can talk to me on the page and let me know what you're thinking. So far, so good, mindsetters. Awesome job. Keep on chatting to me. Keep on letting me know what you guys are thinking. And yes, make sure you stick around and stay tuned till the end of the show. We'll be announcing the winner of the first level draw. So make sure you don't forget to keep pushing to the next level. You never know. You might be the one who might be getting that awesome prize. But for now, also don't forget Curio, which actually Haley's going to be explaining to you just now. Haley, take it away.
Thanks, Ty. I've been thrown in the deep end. I think I'm going to explain Curio right now. Well, I've been told that you know how to do everything and that everything is actually on our page. But what I do need to give you is the codes. Now, apparently, the MathsLit codes that are open right now are MTL 30 for grade 11, paper 1. And MTL 31 for grade 12, paper 1. So those are the codes that you need. And if you need any other codes, then you know what, get hold of Ty, contact him, he says, online. And I'm sure he'll give you the other codes, but those are the codes that you need. So it's MTL 30 for grade 11 paper 1 and MTL 31 for grade 12 paper 1. Hey, should I carry on with today's show?
Let's do that.
So let's carry on with today's show. Right. Carrying on with question 5.2, we were dealing with this rainwater. And now what we have is the company supplying the rainwater tank indicates that the time that it takes to install a water tank depends on the number of workers. Well, that kind of makes sense to us. So what we have is we have a table. This tells us the number of workers needed to install Jaguar's rainwater tank. Now we've got number of workers, and it goes up 2, 3, A, and 8. Number of hours, 15, 10, 7.5, and B. Now what we need to do before we carry on with the question is actually understand the table. So what I notice about this table is that as my number of workers goes up, so I'm just looking at my 2, 3, maybe not my 8. As my number of workers go up, my number of hours needed goes down, which makes sense to me. So the more workers I have, the less time it's going to take. So that is what this graph is telling us. Now they want us to actually determine the missing values of A and B. Now, whenever we have a graph where the one's going up and the other's going down, we have a relationship between the two. So if I look at the relationship of 2 workers takes 15 hours and 3 workers will take 10 hours, I can see that 2 times 15 equals 30. And that is actually also equal to 3 times 10. So when I have this type of graph where the one's going up and the other's going down, I can actually multiply the two to get my kind of like fixed amount. So now if I want to work out what A is, what do I have to do? Well, I have to say that basically A times by 7.5 needs to equal 30. So in order for me to get A on my own, I'm going to divide by 7.5 on both sides. So I say, well, it's actually 30 divided by 7.5. Let's get our calculator out. 30 divided by 7.5, and we get an answer of 4. So my answer here is 4. And don't forget to actually add your units, even when you're working out something that's in a graph. So this is 4 workers. And we're going to do the same thing for B. But for B, we're going to say, well, let's change our color so we don't get confused. So B times by 8 equals to 30. And again, I'm going to divide by 8 and divide by 8. And I get an answer of 30 divided by 8. And I get an answer of 3,75. And remember that that is 3,75. Remember that that is hours. And please be careful whenever you're dealing with hours. Leave it like that. Hey, you don't need to simplify it because my pet hate is 3 hours and 75 minutes. It is not. It is 75 of an hour. So it's actually 3 hours and 3/4, which becomes 45 minutes. So rather leave it. Don't mess with it. So that's perfect. We've determined the missing value of A and B. We've calculated those. Perfect. And in fact, our answer is in hours, not in minutes. So we can leave it as 3,75. Right. The next question says, state the type of proportion that is represented by the data in Table 5. And we just need to remember this, that as one goes up and the other goes down, what is our proportion? It is an inverse proportion. An inverse proportion. Right. And now I think it's time for us to move on to our next question. Right, our next question is going to be dealing with some finance. So again, adapted from the February-March paper this year, and we're dealing with question 2. So starting off with 2.1, we read our question and it says, Mrs. King inherited an amount of 150,000 Rand. She decided to invest the money at a bank and to use some of the interest to pay off an overseas holiday in China. Okay, so she chooses ABC Bank, which offers her 6.6% compound interest per annum. So it's important that we know it's compound interest, and this is per annum. Always look out for when it's compound, if it's compounded more than once a year. Calculate the value of investment after 3 years. So what we're basically saying is that we are taking her full amount and we're putting it into the bank. Now, I like to write out, for each one of these, I like to actually write out what I have. So we've got A, P, R, and N, and it tells us. So even if we forget and we panic in the exam, they give us this information. They tell us that A is the final amount. That's what she's going to have in the bank in 3 years' time. So that's what I need to calculate. So A is my question mark. P is the amount invested. How much did she inherit? What did she start with today? And that was 150,000. I was the annual interest rate. We saw that it was 6.6%. 6.6%. And N was her investment period. And don't forget, always in years. So how many years did we have? We had 3 years. Now we're going to write out the formula. So now I'll take a different color. And I've got A equals to P. What was my P? 150,000. Because all I'm doing is substituting in now. Okay. Open my bracket. 1 plus. Now, my interest rate, you can write it as a percentage. Or I like to write it as 6,6 over 100. Because my calculator can work out these fractions for me. It's perfect. But I could have actually calculated it first and worked it out as 0,066. So I'm going to leave it like that for now. And then to the power of 3 years. Get my calculator out. Right, we've got 150,000. Make sure that you have the correct number of zeros. Open my bracket. 1 plus my interest rate. I've got a fraction. 6.6 over 100. Close bracket to the power of, and it was 3 years. I also find if I use the fraction button, it's easier for me to actually divide by when it's compounded, like, say, monthly, because then I can add my 12 to that point where I've got the 100 now. Press equals, and I get 181,703. Are you going to be remembering numbers? 181,703.32. So she gets 181,703.32.
Yes.
Should we check it?
Yes, let's just check.
703.32. We did a good job. Okay. So that is how much money she had at the bank. Now, I just want to go back and double check that I've actually got the calculation. It says calculate the value of investment after 3 years. So we've done that. I've got an answer. And I know that it's Rand. And Rand, remember, 2 decimal places. Really, really important. Okay, so I've got that 2 decimal places. I've got my units. Let's see what else she does. Right. She intends using 15,000 Rand. Lost our pen. She intends using 15,000 Rand available to spend in China. How much will the amount be in Chinese yen? Use the exchange rate of 1 Rand is 0,89 yen. So what we're doing now, we've got a ratio. And it's quite an easy ratio. So we know that we have 1 Rand. Okay? And that is equal to our yen of 0,89. Now, I know she wants to use 15,000 Rand. And if the units worry you, you know what? You can actually leave the units out in your calculation. And I want to know how much that is equal in yen. So what do? I say, well, what do I do from here to get here? I times by 15,000. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to times by 15,000. So let's get my answer out. Let's do this, rewrite this. So what I actually have is I have 15,000 Rand times by 0,89. And let's see what our answer is. 15,000 times by 0,89. And I see that it's 13,350. 13,350. And don't forget your units. So that's my yen. Now, am I expecting an answer that is bigger or smaller? I always like to check. So for 1 Rand, I got less yen than a Rand. I got less in money, less than 1. So I'm expecting an answer that's less than 15,000. That's what I got. So I'm pretty sure that it's the correct answer. Let's move on to the next question. Okay. Was that the end of Mrs. was. Right. Next question is 2.2, I think. I think we've left out the number. What we have here is Jacuba and Sinclair business made a profit of 125,400 Rand during 2010. Their total expenses in the same year were 235,656. Jacuba and Sinclair shared their profit such that Jacuba received 54,160, determine the ratio of the profit of Jacuba's profit to Sinclair's profit in a simplified form. And right now you're thinking there were lots of numbers. I don't know what they want. I know it's got something to do with ratio. So you know what? Let's take a deep breath and let's go back to what we know. Right. They made a profit of 125,000. So there was a profit of 125,400. Their total expenses in the same year, so I'm going to put in my expenses, was actually 235,656. They shared their profit, but Jacuba received 54,000. So J, let's make it J, received 54,160. Now determine the ratio. Well, if they've taken, there's our profit. We don't even need the expenses. There's our profit. J received that. So what did Sinclair receive? So let's work that out. So Sinclair received the balance. So it was 125,400 Rand, because that was their total profit, minus what Jacuba received. So let's get our calculator out and work that out. It was 125,400 minus this 54,160. 71,240. 71,240. So now we know what each one of them received as far as profit goes. But then they asked us to determine the ratio of their profit in simplified form. So we want the ratio of J to S. So we're going to go back. Let's actually change colors so we can follow what we're doing. So we've got the ratio of 54,160 to 71,240. That's my ratio before I've simplified it. Now, when we need to simplify it, you know, our calculators can do this for us. So take my calculator and let me take my 54,160 divided by 71,240 and see what answer I get. There is my simplified ratio, 1354 to 1781. And that's the simplified as it gets. Have I put in the correct numbers? 1354. So my ratio is 1354. Was it 1354? Now I've lost it.
1354 over 1781.
Over 1781. And that's a simplified ratio. And there you go. We've answered the question. Let's move on to the next. I don't know if we've got time for the next question. Do you think we got? I think maybe.
I think we should go for a break.
Go for a quick break because I'm going on to the next question. I'm actually going on to question 4, still from the same paper, and I think maybe we should give them a bit of a stretch.
Like a breather. They must go get something to drink. Maybe.
Absolutely.
All right. So mindsetters, don't disappear. Yes, we're taking a break, but doesn't mean you just wander off. We're going to be gone for a couple of minutes. So make sure you stick around and don't forget. Keep using the page. Keep on posting to us. And if you have any questions that you're really, really struggling with, you can also email helpdesk@learnextra.co.za. So I'm going to see you after this break. And welcome back, mindsetters. So, yes. I just want to tell you guys that I've got a special surprise with me. Yes, the box. So in here is going to be the winner's name. So we're going to have a draw later on in the show. So mindsetters, do not forget, if you want to end up in the box, you have to make sure that you post on the page and don't forget to share with your friend. But don't forget also, share responsibly because we really don't want the page to be shut down. So make sure you share it with one person you think this will really, really benefit. But Besides all the excitement about the prizes and all the stuff, we've got a lesson to do. So, Haley, you ready?
Thanks, Ty. I'm
Alrighty.
so looking forward to pulling out the winner's name. I don't think I've ever done that, where I've actually got to read out the winner. Or maybe I won't read out, but I'm going to be filling, aren't I? You're going to let me pull out.
Don't
Yeah.
worry about that later.
Right. Worry about that later. Okay, let's carry on. So now we got question 4, adapted from the same paper, and starting with question 4.1. Right. AA High School was considering renting a photocopier. They approached 2 companies, Company A and Company B, and obtained the following quotations. So, Company A said the rental of 800 Rand per month, which includes 3,000 free copies per month. Thereafter, a charge of 5 cents per copy applies. So we're getting, for 800 Rand, we're getting 3,000 copies, but thereafter we pay 5 cents a copy. Company B says the rental is actually lower, which includes 2,500 free copies per month. Thereafter, a charge of 10 cents per copy applies. Now, it's very hard to compare these values like this when you get this kind of quote. So what we did is, they did in the paper for you, is they actually created tables. So now we've got table 3. This is monthly cost in Rand of renting a photocopier. So Company A, for 0 copies, remember that was our fixed cost. It's 800 from Company A, and Company B was 600. And then we carry on reading. Now, I like to interpret the graph. So then we've got Company A, 800 for a while. Why? Because the first 3,000 were included. So up until 3,000, Company A is 800 Rand. Thereafter, we start paying per copy. And we can see that it goes up steadily. Company B, on the other hand, 600, 600, then we got a P, and then it goes up steadily. So where did Company B? Company B had to 2,500. So we're going to put a line there. And now we're going to use that fact to answer all the questions. The line graph illustrated the total rental cost for Company B has been drawn below. Now, let's see if I've got this drawn. Okay, so Company B has been drawn for me. So let's look at our line graph. We've got number of copies, and we've got the cost in Rand, and you can see that it starts on the 600. I hope this is clear enough. I should try color this in. Maybe we should try that. So let's see if I see how well I can do that. Right, color that goes straight to there, and then we get another line that goes up from there, and right, doesn't quite finish, but that's fine. I hope that makes a little bit more sense. Let's try finish it. Okay, so we got the straight line going up. Why does it carry on going straight? Because we've got a constant increase of 10 cents per copy. So let's go back to the question. It said, on the same axis, draw a line graph to illustrate the total rental cost for Company A. So we've got Company B, Company A. Now, whenever you're drawing a graph, I want you to use their values that they've given you. So what do I mean by that? Is that I want you to use, well, we're going to start off with that value. We can use up to 800. Remember, that's 2,500. Then I want, or up to 3,000. Then I want you to use these values that they've given you. And because we know it's a straight line, so we can then just connect the dots. So let's start off. I'm going to start at 800, so I'm going to draw a dot. Now, what color? So I'm going to check. Okay, I've got it yellow. I'm going to do this in yellow, so let's get a yellow pen out. Right, starts at 800. And I'm going to carry on my 800 until I've got 3,000 copies. So then I need a dot there. Somehow we don't have a dot. Okay, try that again. So 3,000 copies is a dot. So I can join those lines. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in one more point. I'm actually going to put in the 7,000 at 1,000 because they cut the line so easily and so nicely. So I could put in more, but 1,000 is 7,000. Find out. 7,000 is 1,000. That's that dot there. Right, I could put in another line, not a problem. In fact, let's just do one more. So I've got 6,000 at 950. Let's find 6,000 was 950. That's that dot there. And then all I need to do is connect the dots. So I really only need 3 points to actually draw the graph. So let's get our straight line. And we're drawing 800, from 800 all the way to 3,000. Okay. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to join from that dot We need to join a dot that goes through those, except that that's not very accurate. Let's undo that. Try that again. Yellow line, starting from 3,000. Can't get it on the exact line. Okay, somehow can't get it on the exact line. I think we've got a little bit of a problem with the board. But you can do this a whole lot better when you're doing it with a pen and pencil, and a ruler, definitely. So on the same set of axes, draw the lines. We've done that. Let's move on to the next part of the question. Right, question 1.5. Right, was that the end of that? It was the end of that question. I feel like because I'm doing like just 1.2 and 2.1 that I'm like feeling very disjointed. I know this question continues. Okay, let's see what our next question is. Now we've got adapted from question 1.5. So we're going back to question 1. And again, same paper. This really was a nice paper. In 2001 and 2009, Statistics South Africa ran the Census at School project, using a sample of South African schools. The purpose of this project was to make schools aware of what a census was and also to obtain information about the schools. The schools could then use the information for teaching data handling. And what's really nice is that this is so relevant for right now because the census was released yesterday. Was it released? I think it was yesterday.
I think it was last week.
Was it last week? Okay, but the census has been released. I actually think it was yesterday. But at any rate, we've just, those big censuses that we did last year, and we're getting all the results coming out, and now tell a whole lot of things. And my guess is that you're going to be getting this information in exams in future. But for matrics, not going to affect you because they didn't have this data when they set these exams. Okay. The bar graph below gives the percentage of the schools, so give the percentage of the schools in 2001 and 2009 project that had listed facilities and their services. So we're looking at a facilities and services at South African schools during 2001 and 2009, and this is what we're looking at. Percentages, we're looking at electricity. Okay, and what's nice about this particular table is they also give you the values. So in 2001, which is blue, and 2009, which is orange, they give you the percentage. So 2001, I can see it's 52.7. Or maybe now that I've put a pen through it, you can't see. And 2009 was 65.9. So actually reading, I don't have to read off the graph because I've been given the values in the table at the bottom. We've got running water, the library, computers, email, and internet. And these are the types of facilities that were offered in these schools. So I wonder what these statistics would be now, because I think from 2009 to 2012, hopefully those will increased. Which facility or service showed the smallest percentage use during 2001? So we're looking for 2001, and 2001 is our blue. We can look at our graph because that'll be a quick kind of in-your-face answer. So smallest percentage, we know it is either email or internet. But then I can actually go to the numbers and see that it was the internet. So clearly, I just have to tell you that it's the internet. And they haven't asked for the percentage. They have just asked which facility or service. So we can answer that. And the next one, calculate the difference in the percentage of the schools that had access to running water during the 2 years. So difference, what does the difference mean? Difference is we're going to minus the 2. So the percentages, we've got the percentage, so we can look in for water, and we're going to take our percentages. So it's 60,5 minus 48,4. So let's do that on our calculator, and then I'll write it out. 60,5% was from 2009 minus your 48.4, and we get an answer of 12.1% difference. So let's just write that in quickly. So it was 60.4. I think I need a pen. 60.4 minus, get it on the calculator, 60.5, 48.4. 60.5 minus 48.4, and I get my answer of 12.1, and that was percent. So the difference, quite an easy question. moving on, let's see what else they ask us. Right. Which facility or service showed the greatest increase in percentage over the 2 years? So the greatest increase between these 2 years, and we can now look at our table, look at our graph, because the graph will actually make it easier. We're looking at the difference between the two. So that's quite a nice increase, not much. That one looks like a huge increase. And those are very small increases. And then we could just double check the numbers. Okay, so computers, I would say, well, that more than doubled. Did anybody else more than double? No. So we're going with computers. So we look at our numbers as well. So don't forget, you can check in more than one place. So in this case, it was computers. Again, go back and double check the question. It just says what facility. So also look at your mark allocation, because sometimes they'll say what facility and by how much, what facility and what was the percentage. So just read the question carefully. Go back and reread the question as well. So we've answered that question. Let's move on. Okay, we're back to question 2.3. And I'm wondering, I think we'll carry on with this question. So we now have back to Mrs. King, who stayed in Pietermaritzburg, but works in Durban. She uses the N3 toll road daily to travel from home to work and back. She pays a toll fee. That's an amount of money paid for using the road, and lots of controversy about that. Won't get into that. She pays twice daily. The graph below shows the toll fees for single trips. So we've got our toll fee between Durban and Pietermaritzburg. And this is the number of single trips. Single trips meaning she's going there. But remember, she's going there and she's coming back. So she's actually paying twice a day. So we can get an idea of the cost in rand, and this is the number of single trips. And we can read off. It's nice to read off a graph where it kind of cuts the line. So we can see like 10 doesn't quite cut the line. I'd like to see where it does. Here it cuts the line. So it's easy for me to see that 20 was 150. So I'm going to use that fact later on in the question. Use the graph to answer the following questions. Approximately how much will Mrs. King pay for 10 single trips? And remember, this is approximately. We are reading this off the graph. So 10 single trips, but I'd like you to show on your graph where we use it. So let's get our color. So 10 single trips, that's our price. Go up to the graph, and then across from the graph, across, and we read that value there. Okay, my line's not that straight. And if I can, no, can't. Let's try redo that. It's a little bit straighter. Right. And this was an approximate value. So we can see from this graph, now we've got to read off this value. So it's between 60 and 70. And I know the number in the middle is 70. Sorry, between 60 and 80. The number in the middle is 70. So I know that that is about probably 75 rand. So we're probably looking at between the two. So I'm going to take that as my approximate, is 75 rand. 75 rand. Approximately how much will Mrs. King pay for 10 single trips? So they haven't asked us for each trip, they've asked us for 10 single trips. You know what, I'm thinking that maybe we should give them a little bit of a break before we actually carry on with the next question.
Yeah, I know these jam-packed sessions. Much. They feel like they're super short. It's just because there's a lot of information in them.
Absolutely. There's so much information I'm giving them, like I'm jumping from question to question. But I'm trying to get through so much that I can help you. But I also hope if there's anything that you want to know, guys, then just like tell Ty and he'll tell me and we'll be able to cover it. Exactly. So I'm going to hand over to you to give them a bit of a break.
All right. So mindset is make sure you don't disappear. And I'll be posting up these questions on the page now. So make sure you look out for that as well. But for now, we'll see you after this break. And welcome back, Mindset is now. I hope you guys have had your 3 Ps, pens, pads, and you're making sure that your phone is there so you can talk to us on the page. What I can say is that, guys, for those of you who've been chatting to us, also an awesome job. And if you haven't, well, it's a good idea to actually start now because we're trying to help you revision. You know, we've got an exam coming up. So help yourself out. Get on the page. Talk to me. Let me know what you guys are thinking so I can get those questions to Haley and we can cover whatever you need to cover. But for now, we have a session to do, so Haley, take it away.
I know there's one thing you forgot to tell them, that they must go onto this Curio. So I thought, you know what, I'm on the ball today. Guys, Curio, just in case you didn't get those codes from earlier, we're dealing with MTL30, grade 11, paper 1, and MTL31, grade 12, paper 1. So get those codes. Hope you've written them down, and
super handy.
We can carry on with the question papers. Right. So we were busy with this question, and we were looking at Mrs. King, and she was traveling, and all these things. Right. So this was an approximate value. Now, remember earlier I said to you we could probably work out an exact value if I took one that crosses the line. So I actually want to do this just for curious sake. Not sure if it's later on in the question, but just because I'm curious. So if I go from 20, because that crosses the line there, and I go across from there, okay, I promise across the line, it was 150. So in actual fact, what she's paying is she is paying for 20 trips, 150 Rand. Divided by 20. So I actually see that she's paying 7.50 Rand per trip. And now what was my estimation? My estimation was for 10 trips, what I read off the graph, was 75. So my estimation was actually spot on. And I really like it when that kind of thing kind of comes together. So let's read the next question. So we've still got her graph. Is how many single trips can Mrs. King make for 180 Rand? So now we're asking the same kind of question, but in reverse. So we have 180 Rand, and what we're going to do is let's get our pen out. So 180 Rand, so we take it from 180 to the graph. Okay? And then from the graph going down. I always do that. Kind of doesn't go exactly where I want it. So going down. Now I've got that many. So I am reading this off at that point. Now the thing is I need to interpret what that point is. So if I look at the number of single trips, I've got 20 to 25. So clearly each one of these, because I've got 5 blocks, so that is 24. So how many trips does she take? So we actually have 24 trips. And now I wonder what would actually happen if I take my 180 and divide by 7.50 Rand. Just, we know, well, we worked it out earlier, that it was 7.50 Rand each. See, 24, and it's perfect. I like double checking, and there's often times in the exam where you actually can double check. It's kind of like make sense of your answer. It's always nice, don't you think, Ty, that you get to an exam and you think, I actually got that question because I checked it and I know that it made sense and I did it a different way. Because I always say to my kids, there's so many different ways we can do something.
It's always good because you can really get that confidence.
Absolutely. Get confidence, number one, especially this is question 2, so it gives you confidence for the rest of the paper. And to know, go out and go, you know what, pat on the back, I actually did this and I know I did it well. So that's always nice. Right, let's see what else Mrs. King does. So, use the graph to answer the following questions. Right. Calculate the approximate cost of 3 return trips. So, again, it's an approximate. No, go back to that. Well, go back to that. I didn't have a pen. Calculate the approximate cost. So it's an approximate. So whatever your value was, we can use that value. And we want 3 return trips. So what is a return trip? It means we go there and back. So how many trips do we actually need? Well, we actually need 6 trips. And that's really important. So that was your 3 trips times 2 per day. Okay, so we need 6 trips. And again, we can now, at this stage, we could basically use the maths of it because we've worked out that it was 7.50 Rand. But let's try read it off the table. So we're going to go 6 trips and my graph, right, so we're going to find 6 and we're going to draw up to our graph and across. And now all of a sudden I've got arrows. Okay, and read off that. So it was between 40 and 60. So we know the middle number is 50. It was between 40 and 50. So what does that give us? It gives us 45 Rand. So it's costing us, right, it's costing us 45 Rand. That's an approximate. And again, I could use a calculator and I could work this out exactly. So that's perfect. So I think I've got one more question for Mrs. King. Mrs. King works an average of 22 days per month. Calculate the approximate amount she needs to budget per month for toll fees. Okay, so she works 22 days. She needs to go to work and she needs to come home. So we have our 22 days times 2, because she actually needs to take 44 trips. And we need to know how much she budgets for month. Now, our problem with our graph is that we actually only have our graph going up to 25. So I could work out 22 and then multiply by 2. So maybe that's one way of doing it. Now let's try that one first. So I'm going to find my 22. So let's get my line. Right, 22, go up to the graph and across from the graph. And I can see that that is 165. So go back to here. If I read off 22, that's not going to work. Need a pen for that. 22 trips is equal to 165. So now I'm going to times that by 2. So let's get our calculator out. And we've got 22 times 1, not 22, 165 times 2. 165 times 2. And I see that that's 330 Rand. So we budget 330 Rand. The other thing we could say, well, okay, in actual fact, we needed 44 trips. So we're going to say 44 trips times by, and we worked it out. It was 7.50 Rand per trip. So we can multiply that. So this was the other way of doing it. Say 44 times by 7.50 Rand, and we see that's 330 Rand. So great, we have calculated that she needs to budget 330 Rand for her transport. Now, one of the things that can come into budgeting is you can think about it and you can say to yourself, well, okay, if she needs to budget 330, but maybe she works an extra day or she goes in like one day over the weekend. So you might want to say, well, in actual fact, if she's creating a budget for herself, she might want to budget a little bit more. But if you're going to tell me that in an exam, then what I want to know is I want to know your thinking. So I want you to show that we actually worked out that it was 330. And then you can say, well, we can actually over budget a little bit. So don't just jump to the conclusion that, oh, well, if I budget 400 Rand, it'll be enough. Because for that, you won't get any marks. I always say to the kids, your examiner needs to know what you are thinking all the time. And don't forget your units. So if we answered the question, the approximate amount that she needs to budget for the toll fees. Now I'm going to throw over to Ty and ask him if there is anything out there that anybody wants to know. So how's our Facebook page looking?
Well, I think meanwhile we can actually just go for a quick ad break. But before we do that, I just want to say before I forget, and how could I forget, even wearing earrings for the event. Yes, Mindset is, if you haven't noticed Haley's earrings by now, it is Halloween. So yes, I completely forgot. It slipped my mind. I was like, wait, we've got Halloween. Yes, so Mindsetters, I hope you guys have been enjoying your Halloween. But yes, instead of just going to scare out people, just do a little bit of education first. Edumacation. Teach yourself a little thing or two. Get ready for your exams. Then you can go trick-or-treating later. But Mindsetters, I cannot stress enough, do not disappear. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back, Mindsetters. Now, I hope you guys have been paying attention to the page and to the lesson at hand, because on the page I've also posted up the questions for today's session. So make sure you go through that. It's great for revision. Download all of them. Work through them. It's for you. We did it for you because we want to help you. You know, we just do this because we care about you. So make sure you help yourself pass by actually following the instructions as we've been saying. Get on to Curio, post on the page, talk to us. Also email helpdesk@learnextra.co.za, and just let us know where you're having problems or issues or lost anywhere. And don't forget, you can also hit us up at sales@mindset@learnextra.co.za, and you can get yourself an order of some exam booklets and some anything to help you prep for your exam revision. So make sure you keep on posting on the page. Talk to us, as I've been saying. But right now we have a search to do. So, Haley, take it away.
Thanks, Ty. Okay, welcome back, guys. So I think we finished with Mrs. King, and now let's move on. We are now adapted from the same time. We've got our March, February. We've got paper 2, though, and we're looking at question 5.1. So this question says, Peggy is the owner of Tasty Sandwich Company. And then it gives us her weekly expenses are rent of 520 Rand. Now, this is weekly expenses, so it's important that we remember, keep in the back of our mind. Water and electricity of 390 Rand, wages, 25% of the total weekly expenses. My guess is we're going to have to work that out. And other expenses are 140 Rand. The cost of ingredients and packaging is 4 Rand per sandwich. So that is important. Right. Firstly, calculate her total weekly expenses. So what we need to do is we need to work out what her total weekly expenses are. We're going to add them up. So we've got our total weekly expenses are, 520 plus 390. So I can write that out. So it's 520 plus 390 plus my other of 140 plus my salary, my wages. So what I need to do is work out my total of this first. So 520 plus 390 plus 140. So I get a total of 1050. So 1050, was it 1050? 1050 plus my wages. No, that's the wrong. There. Okay. Plus wages gives me my total. Now, what was my wages? Is equal to the total. And my wages was 25% of the weekly expenses. So I need to work out what 25% of that is. So I'm going to say 1050 times by 25%. So times by 25%, and we get our total of 262 Rand 50. So that's what she pays in wages. So my total then is 1050. I think I forgot to write this number in. Let's go just back to my yellow. That was 262 Rand 50. So we're going to add that. Let's change the color again. So now my total that she pays is 1050 plus this 262.50. And we get a final total of, I've already got my 262.50. So all I need to do is add my 1050. And I see that my total is 1312.50. 1312.50. Don't forget, guys, that it is money. It is 2 decimal places, and you need to have your units. So whenever you get your calculator and you end up with a 0.5 or just 1 decimal place with money, you must add the 0 at the end. That's what they tend to do, is they tend to take off marks throughout the paper for these kind of silly little careless, well, not careless mistakes, careless mistakes. I think I'm going to carry on saying careless mistake. Calculate her total weekly expenses. We've done that. We've calculated her expenses. So let's move on to the next part of the question. Right. Then it says, write down a formula that Peggy could use to calculate her total cost in Rand per week for producing the number of sandwiches in the form of total cost in Rand per week is equal to. So what have we got? A total cost. That's what they want. They want the total cost in Rand per week is always equal to her fixed cost. What were her fixed costs? That's what I calculated. That's what I calculated in the last question, 1312.50. Okay, so her fixed cost. 1312.50 is just double checking it. Plus, how much does it cost her per sandwich? So I'm going to put it underneath here. How much does it cost her per sandwich? Now, when we were reading, remember we saw this 4 Rand per sandwich for the ingredients. So it is 4 Rand times the number of sandwiches. Number of sandwiches. Okay. So we'll just carry on there. And have we got the formula? That gives her a perfect formula. It's always, your formula is always a fixed cost plus the rate of whatever it is that you're dealing with times the number of whatever it is. In this case, we're dealing with sandwiches. So it was our fixed cost plus the rate of 4 Rand per sandwich. Okay, let's move on to the next part of the question. Peggy's total cost for making sandwiches in 1 week amounted to 2,400 Rand. How many sandwiches were made? So we now know that her total cost was 2,400. But for that, we had our fixed cost plus we had the 4 Rand times N. And I'm going to say N for the number of sandwiches. So now I need to solve how many sandwiches we actually made. So what we're going to do is we're going to first get rid of all these numbers. So I'm going to move that to the other side. So I'm going to say 2,400. And I'm minusing our fixed cost. And that is equal to 4N. And I can leave my Rand sign off, because sometimes that Rand sign tends to confuse us. So on our calculator, let's do that. So we've already got that number. So I'm going to say 2,400 minus this answer. And I'm going to get 1,087.50. And now we're going to take that and we're going to divide it by 4, because that was equal to 4N. Maybe I left out that spot. So if I divide by 4, I get the number on its own. So take out my calculator and divide that by 4. And I get an answer of 271,875. Now, she hasn't made enough money. Well, look, her cost. So we're going to round it down. So 271 sandwiches. Sandwiches. Don't forget your units. So it's the sandwiches. Hey, that's perfect. So go back to this. Why did I round down? So this said 278, but 272. But if I go with 272, then her costs are actually going to be that little bit more. So I'm rather going to round down, because she made 2,000. Her costs were 2,400 Rand. Hey, let's see if we've got time to move on to our next question. Okay. Peggy uses the following formula to calculate the total production cost in Rand per sandwich. So, where P is the total production cost in Rand per sandwich X, the number of sandwiches produced per week. So, we've got P is the total production cost. We've got 1,400 divided by X, where X is the number of sandwiches produced per week, plus 4. So she uses that formula, and we're going to use that formula to actually calculate the missing values in the table. So I want to go through the table, and then before I do the calculations, I think I'm going to give you another break, because I think that, but let's go through the table quickly. We've got the cost of producing one sandwich. Our table says the number of sandwiches X produced in a week. We've got 0 to 100, 200, 400, etc. The total cost P of producing one sandwich in Rand. And we're going to work out each one of these. So we got 18. So the total cost was 18, 11, 750. And you can see what's happening. It's actually getting cheaper for her to produce per sandwich. So we're going to calculate the missing values of A and B and explain the meaning. I think we're going to do that when you get back. So I'm going to send you back to Ty, who's going to send you on a break.
All right. So mindset is, wow. Keep on posting on the page. I'm seeing all your comments, and I just want to say thank you for posting. Keep on talking to us. Keep on chatting to us. Keep on letting us know what you guys are thinking, if you're lost and if you need help. Don't forget, we're there for you. We're trying to help you guys out. But for now, we're going to see you after this break. And welcome back, Mindsetters. All right. So yes, here's the tablet that we're going to be giving away. So mindset is, if you want a chance to win this awesome prize, you have to make sure that you get on the page and share. Guys, we haven't been sharing enough of this to get to the next level. So you need to get there and pass it on to another friend, to tell their friend, to pass it on to another friend, to make sure that we get the word out about the page and get more people joining in with us. But yes, for you to stand a chance to win this, as I said, you have to post and share. But yes, Mindsetters, I also want to say we have to give this prize away. So I'm going to invite Haley over here, who's going to mix up the names, and then pull out the name
Mix
there.
up the names. I'm going to do this without looking. Mix up the names. Okay, I got one. And the
Righty.
winner is...
And yes, the winner is Whitney TK. Congratulations, you get this awesome tablet going to be coming to you. So yes, thank you for joining us and actually sharing the page and telling people about the show. So make sure you guys keep on doing the same. So if you want to win one of these, you know what to do.
I actually want to say, I don't think Whitney needs it. Maybe I can keep it.
You know,
No, it's not going
Haley,
to work.
you work with us. It's
Okay, I'm going to go back to the... No, it's not going to work.
So, yes, mindset is, again, keep on posting on the page, keep on chatting to us, and if you have questions that you really need help with, make sure you can also email us at helpdesk@learnextra.co.za. But for now, we have a session to continue with, so, Haley, take it away.
Thank you. Okay, guys. So let's work out this table. So we were looking at calculate the missing values of A and B. So first of all, the cost of producing one sandwich. Well, in actual fact, if she's making no sandwiches, and that's where X is no 0, we're looking at our fixed cost. So our fixed cost of making kind of no sandwiches. So A is just going to be our fixed cost. So we've worked out our fixed cost. So we're going to say A was our fixed cost, and but in actual fact we don't have a fixed cost. A is our cost per sandwich. This is cost per sandwich. Sorry. So we actually, if she makes no sandwiches, it's costing her 0. So it's actually costing her no money because we're talking about the 4 Rand per sandwich. So with 0 sandwiches, it's costing her 0 Rand. Then I'm going to actually test out this formula. I like to work out how they got this 118. So let's see on my calculator. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the formula. I've got my fraction button. I've got 1400. Right, divided by how many was X? X we said was 100 in this case. And then I'm going to add 4. So I want to see how we got to 18. So we got 18. That's how we got that. So now I know exactly how to do this B. So I'm going to say, well, B now is, I have 1400 over X plus 4 is equal to 2. Is that what I'm saying? I'm going to go back to my calculator. So that was equal to 18 is equal to 2. That's exactly what I'm saying. There's my calculator. So what I need to do is I need to work out X. So now I'm manipulating the formula to come back to X. So let's add a little bit more space here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my 4 because that's easy enough. So I'm going to move my 4 to the other side. Okay. And I'm going to multiply by X and divide. So somehow this 1400 is going to be equal to... Now am I going to get a negative? I'm very confused by the sum. And I'm sure that you guys are very confused too. So let me move that over, and I'm going to get 2 minus 4. And that's going to be, I'm going to move my X over, so that's going to be X, and then I'm going to divide it by 6, divided by 2. Let's go back to work out our 600. Very, very confused. So I had 1400 divided by, let's do this bracket, 1400 divided by 700 plus 4 equals 6. So now, not sure how I'm going to get the 2. So you know what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to actually trial and error this. And I'll try 800. I know is not 2. I need to go smaller. Oops. And I think, my thinking is that I'm going to have to go greater than 1500. So I'm going to play around. I'm going to have to play around until I get a number. But let's see if I can actually work it out. But I think at that point, rather than try and struggle with this, I'm going to move on to the next part of the question. So
that's very important as well as exam
absolutely.
technique. When you're struggling with a question, don't try and just tackle it forever because you don't have the time. Make sure that you go on to the next one. And as Haley has explained before, if you really haven't figured it out, use a replacement number just to help you do the working so you can at least get method marks. But on that note, Haley?
Absolutely. Ta's 100% correct. So move on, and you can probably, once you finish the question, maybe go back and still be able to solve it. So what we have here is we now need to draw the relationship. So let's go through this. Let's read the question properly. We need to draw a curved line on the grid below to show the relationship between the total cost of producing one sandwich and the number of sandwiches produced per week. So we know that we started with our cost of 100. So I'm going to go back to that last page. So if we look at this, a cost of 100 was 18, and then 200 was 11. So I need to fill these values in to my graph. So 100 was 18. In this case, I'm going to use a color. So 100 was 18, and then 200 was 11, and go back to the page before. 400 was 7.5, and 700 was 6. 400 was 7.5. 400 was 7.5. 700 was 6. So you can see that I am, and this will be a curved line, and I'm going to join the dots. Oh, not so very well. And I'm going to join the dots. And then in actual fact, from this, I could probably see where 2, but I don't think 2 actually crosses line. So I think there must have been some form of mistake. But don't stress about it. Don't stress about it. It will get closer and closer unless I had to make my number like really huge. But my graph is perfect. Remember, whenever you're doing a curved graph, don't use a ruler to join the lines. I'd rather you did it freehand so that we can see that there's actually a curve, because otherwise your ruler tends to be too jagged. And I know it's not that neat when I do it freehand on the board.
Don't worry, it's maths, not art.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. But I think that we've answered that part of the question. So let's move on. So Peggy calculated that the total cost per sandwich could vary from 6 Rand to 29 Rand. Calculate how many sandwiches she would produce if the total cost per sandwich is a minimum. So I'm getting very confused by Peggy's calculation. Total cost per sandwich could vary from 6 Rand to 29 Rand. Calculate how many sandwiches she would produce if the total cost per sandwich is a minimum. So her minimum is 6 Rand. And I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what
they're just not trick questions. It's just like, yes, the answer is in front of you. I think the teacher's just checking. Have you been reading the questions?
It's 6 Rand in the minimum and the maximum. Her total cost per sandwich would vary from 6 Rand. Calculate how many sandwiches she would produce. Okay, so I've got a feeling that we're actually missing something here, and that. But I
was actually thinking, we actually had a quick question. I know this is completely unrelated, but I just figured, yeah, we might as well just pop it in anyway. We had a mindset to ask us, please, Hayley, please, can you please do tax calculations, or at least explain how we can get across that?
A tax calculation. Okay, well, there's a few things. Let's find a little bit of space. There's a few things to consider with tax calculations. So I'm glad the question came out. First of all, like if you have to add VAT, then you're just adding 14%. So whenever we're adding VAT, I always go with you need to times by, and I always say 114%, because you're adding it. So you're timesing basically your 100% and your 14%. Okay? And if you've got a tax calculation where you're working it out, you just got to remember that it's in a tax table, and you need to read off the tax table. So first, kind of find out, I know your table looks something like this, and where their salary lies, and then read off the table what that value is. And remember that the value always says it's an amount of money, like in rands, and then plus 38% of the amount above a certain amount. So what's important is for them to look for, it will be an amount plus, let's say, 35% of, and that's always multiply, the amount above. So what we need to do is we need to take our amount that we're earning minus this above, and then we'll get 35% of that plus add it to the original. I hope that helps.
That does. That helps me as well, because I'm like, that makes a lot more sense now when I get a receipt, because I always got a receipt. I'm like, why am I? Do I? Never mind. But now I actually understand it.
You know what I want to say to the kids is that I know this last question was a little bit of a problem. But guys, don't panic in your exam.
Don't panic.
Okay, take your time. You've got time. Work out how many minutes they can do. Work out how many minutes, how many marks you have to do in a minute, and basically just enjoy it. And guys, good luck. So I'm handing over to Tanda. Goodbye from me.
All right. So mindset is, as we said, don't panic. I know it's like saying don't look down, but just don't panic. Keep focused. Keep working through it. Keep your head on your shoulders. But yes, mindset is, it was a pleasure. Make sure you keep on posting, keep using the page, and hit us up on our help desk at learnextra.co.za. And this is where I, as Ty, say thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time. But don't forget, take care. Cheers.